field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Mattingly. Tuck makes one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
Welcome back to another episode of TableSetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag team partner, Devin. What's up, man?
What's going on, dude? I don't know about you, but it just seems like we're in that part of the year as far as the baseball news cycle where there's lots of reports and very, very little substance. It's driving me a little bit crazy. Everyone trying to be an expert that probably isn't an expert. One of these days, we're going to get a real report with some breaking news.
So we're here at episode 41. We're going to jump right into it here on TableSetters. Today, we are excited to welcome in Chase Solesky to the show. After joining the Nationals on a minor league deal, Chase made a real impact at AA Harrisburg this past season. He just recently finished pitching in the Arizona Fall League, where, let's be honest, he shined, striking out 20 batters, earning a spot on the Fall League All-Star team. Chase, thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here. Always excited to talk ball and just, spread the good word.
We love it. And we're going to get right into really the highlight of your name being in the news cycle, and your performance at the Arizona Fall League, as I mentioned, was absolutely outstanding, earning you a spot on the All-Star roster and contributing to the Arizona Fall League Championship. You struck out 20 batters, as I mentioned, walked just 1 in 6 appearances. So going to that, what do you think worked so well for you during your time there? And how did you adjust to facing really such high level of competition?
It's kind of funny. There's a few things, right? So, it's not my first time in the Fall League, so I think having some experience, understanding, what you're there to do, what you're there to accomplish is probably the most important thing. But then, the Nationals have done a really nice job this year, kind of refining me. They didn't recreate me. I like to say that they refined me. They have allowed me to throw a pitch arsenal that I'm confident in. I've always had an ability to make the ball go right. So cutters, sliders, cut fastballs, anything like that. So they've embraced that and allowed me to start throwing my splitter again, which has probably been the biggest component to the strikeouts, which was really nice. So I think my overall focus there was to go in there and just have a commitment to throwing the ball in the zone, right? You never know how good you're going to be, or you never know what your potential is going to be if you don't throw the ball in the strike zone and see what happens, right? So just go right after guys and attack with your best stuff. Let the chips fall where they may after that, and trust your stuff, right? Like, I believe in my stuff, and I was going to go out there and see where I stacked up, and that's what I did. And I feel good about where I'm at and, kind of where my stuff is, and my ability ranks among guys that were there this year.
For the casual fan, I'm sure there's some baseball fans that aren't as familiar with what the Arizona Fall League, how it's set up. Could you just explain how that works as far as how the teams are formed, and just give us a little picture of what the vibe there is like?
Yeah, so the Fall League's really cool. Basically, there's 6 teams, and every team is comprised of 5 major league organizations. 5 major league organizations. Each team will send roughly 5 to 7 of their top prospects. Every guy has to be approved by MLB to go. They're there for a reason, whether that reason may be, okay, hey, we want to see if this guy's good enough to get a spot on the 40. We want this guy to pitch into November so he can help us in the postseason next year. Hey, this is a prospect such as Andy Painter, who's been hurt. We want him to get some innings. We want him to play. We want him to, trust the fact that he's healthy, go into an offseason, feel good about where he's at, and come in and dominate the next year. The vibes are really cool, right? So I've heard of a couple different stories. Some guys are really egotistical when it comes to it. Like, I'm a top prospect. I'm here for myself. What you guys do doesn't affect me. The roster that I happen to be on this year, our manager, who was from the Twins, Tyler Smarslock, was just like, from day one, he was like, look, guys, like, we're going to be a family. Like, we're going to have fun. We're going to be a family. Let the chips fall where they may. And I think everyone in the locker room kind of embraced that. So we had the 6th ranked roster out of 6 teams. And we were just like, why not us kind of thing. Like, the least amount of prospects, the least amount of this, the least amount of that. But it was like, we're a family. We played well together. We trusted in each other. And every guy showed up to the clubhouse every day and used one another to get better, right? Like, pitchers would ask me all the time, like, hey, what do you see right here? Like, where do you think I can get better? I would tell guys all the time, hey, if you see anything on my end, let me know. Like, I want to know. Because I think it's really cool. It's a really cool experience to get around 4 other organizations, different eyes, different ears, different ideas, different opinions, and see where you stack up, right? There's not very many times in baseball where you have an extended period of time in front of another pitching coach from a different organization to learn their ideas and what makes their guys good. So we had a really cool group, very open-minded. Everyone wanted to get better. I would sit in like base running meetings, hitting meetings. I don't know. I face some of these guys during the year. I want to know how they game plan against me, right? Who says I'm on a really good streak in AAA, and next thing you know, I'm facing the Twins, and now I know exactly how they're going to game plan me. Who's to say that if that little bit of information doesn't help me get up to the big leagues? So it's cool. Everyone's an open book. It was a really fun experience, and I think anyone who gets to do it should take full advantage of it and just be a sponge.
And so being named to the AFL All-Star team must have been a huge honor for you. And we talk about confidence all the time. Sometimes confidence equals success. So how did that recognition really impact your confidence? And what did it mean to be acknowledged as one of the top performers? You mentioned top prospects being out there. So you were among the best of the performers in this short time, showing what you can do in Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really special. My journey this year has been quite interesting, and just to kind of go out there. And it was one of those things for me where there's been a ton of people who have believed in me all year, as well as myself, right? So it's nice to always kind of prove the people who believe in you right versus the people who don't, prove them wrong. It's just kind of something I like to say to myself. It's not something I'm super outspoken about, but I think that was the thing that was most important for me, right? Like the journey that I've been on this year, being able to prove my parents right, prove my agent right, prove the Nationals right, that those kind of things of like, hey, you guys believed in me. You guys have never given up on me. You guys have, kept me on this journey, propelled me forward, pushed me to go out there and be vulnerable and all these different things, and to go out there and be successful on the best stage in amateur baseball is like really cool. Something I'll never forget, and it's something I'll always cherish.
You said before you've done the fall league before. Going into spring after that, like knowing that you played a little bit longer than some other people, is the feeling that you have an advantage over certain other players going into spring?
See, that's like a really interesting topic, because obviously most guys have already had 6 to 7 weeks off, right? Like most minor league guys have already had 6 to 7 weeks off. So you're going to go into a big league camp. Those guys are going to be well rested. Their arms are going to feel great. They're going to have a full throwing program. They're going to get in the weight room and attack all their, deficiencies. As to where me now, dude, I'm taking like 5 days off of throwing, and I'm playing catch with the football. But on the flip side of that, it allowed me to like continue to develop my splitter, continue to develop my cutter, continue to find confidence in my slider, continue to attack the top of the zone with my fastball. And all of those things, now it's like, okay, cool. He only has a little bit of time off of throwing, but it allows me to stay sharp. So I'm viewing it much different this time around than I was last time. Last time I'm like, oh man, my arm doesn't feel 100%. Dude, your arm never feels 100% on a baseball field at this level. And that's just part of it. So I do this year think it gives me an advantage because I got to play longer and develop my skills, especially since, we added a splitter the last week of August. We started throwing the sweeper again the beginning of August. We changed, we dropped my arm slot a little bit, like the end of July, right? So a lot of new changes in not a lot of time. So to go out there and test those against the best competition and see where, hey, how's this going to work? And it worked that way, like that well. Gives me a ton of confidence going into next year, going into a big league camp, those kind of things. It gives you the utmost confidence.
See, that's what I would love about the Arizona Fall League, as far as it gives you maybe that extra time to tinker a little bit as far as being a pitcher. I mean, or a hitter, but especially a pitcher. I mean, I think I'm a huge Mets fan, and I think about Sean Manaea just suddenly changing his arm angle in the middle of the year, which it seems bonkers, like in the middle of a major league season, just watching Chris Sale one day and being like, you know what, I'm going to try that. And it ended up working out very well for him. But it just seems like a great opportunity to maybe make some changes or experiment with some things that you'd like to experiment with. I know some people do it in spring training, but the Arizona Fall League seems like maybe even a better opportunity to do that at the right time. Yeah.
And you know what? I think it's funny because it's such a big league environment, minus the fans, like the sheer number of fans. Like, I mean, dude, when you step on the mound, like you're facing everyone's top prospects, dude. Like You got Tamar Johnson hitting leadoff.
Mm.
You got Bryce Eldridge hitting 2-hole. You got Jet Williams hitting 3. Right? Like, I mean, I could go on. Drew Gilbert's hitting 8-hole. I mean, that's a AAA guy who played all year there and hit almost 300. He's hitting 8-hole in the Arizona Fall League. Okay? Like, every guy you're facing is legit. You got Breece Endo hitting 4-hole, who's, the Triple Crown winner. You got a kid who won the Arizona Fall League MVP in the All-Star game hitting 7. Like, come on. So it's like the Chris Sale thing with Sean. It's kind of like, okay, well, dude, why not try it? Like, let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, it's one start. I'm making $20 million either way.
Yeah, true.
Right?
True.
Like, you're playing with house money. So it's like, what's the worst that can happen? I get shelled and we lose one game.
Right.
I mean, actually, it's like one game is important. Yes, all of them are important. But it's like, are the Mets as good if Sean Manaea doesn't do that?
Yeah, no way. They don't do basically anything they did at the end when you think about it. You dropped some names there. I was actually going to ask you, was there someone, whether it be a teammate or an opponent, that just opened your eyes like, wow, this guy is going to be a star in the future?
Yeah, Caleb Durbin, dude. That kid, I know that's your rival.
Well, Steve's a big Yankee fan, so he likes to hear this.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of good things about Caleb over here.
I mean, what do you want to know, dude? The kid, this is how I like to describe him. He's a ball player, right? Like, you will not go to Yankee Stadium and see Caleb Durbin and be like, who's that? But Caleb Durbin's going to play, and you're going to be like, who's that? It's not impressive. He doesn't run well. He runs well, right? But it's not like blazing speed.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to run bases, though. Watch the kid. Like, watch him take a lead. Watch him study a pitcher. Watch him go into a base running meeting before the game and understand the things they talk about. Like, watch the kid play defense. He can play second base well. He can play shortstop well. I mean, he made a diving play in the championship game in the Fall League to basically win us the game. He can also play outfield. He hit 300. He had 5 homers. Right? Like, shows up every day. He's like one of the first guys there. Awesome clubhouse guy. Super funny. Like, just the guy gets it. He's just a ball player, man. Like, he's just an old school, like, baseball nerd. That's what I like to call him. It's funny.
Chase, you had me at defense. The Yankees obviously need some defense going out of the October, and the infield was an issue. And you mentioned potentially putting them all over the place. We need ball players, so I'm excited to hear that. And that's an awesome name. We were going to ask you about him, obviously, but it came up. So I'm glad to hear on your end of things that he's as advertised, because there's a lot of hype going on in New York radio. People are talking about him.
I had John Morosi called me a few weeks ago and kind of, the MLB analyst, and asked me my opinions on some people. And I was like, dude, Caleb Durbin, I promise you, that's never a guy you're going to expect to play 10 years in the big leagues, but he's going to play 10 years in the big leagues, no problem. Like,
that's awesome.
He just does everything right. I don't think he does anything great, but he does everything extremely well.
Exciting to hear. So Yankee fans out there, if you're hearing that is right from the source here.
You're ever going to look up and think Caleb Durbin's a Gold Glove winner, but he might be. I don't know if you're ever going to look up and think Caleb Durbin is like a Silver Slugger or batting champion, but he might be. Just because he does it well. He studies the game. He prepares himself well. Just everything he does well. Like, there's never anything where you're like, that wasn't very good.
Sounds like Dustin Pedroia to me, because Dustin Pedroia from the outside looking in, you're like, oh, Pedroia, like, I don't know, things like that. Ball player.
Yeah, that's a good comment.
That's a really good way to put it. Wow, I didn't think about that. I wish I would have thought that. Really, really good way to put it.
Pedroia is on that. We're going to talk about him in a couple episodes further for Hall of Fame ballot. I mean, there's a conversation about what he's done on the field, and did a lot with, every ounce of skill he had, he brought it to the table. Yeah. And like that uniform was always dirty. And I expect we're going to see more of that from Caleb Durbin in Yankee Stadium.
Every night, just dirty as could be.
So Chase, you spent the 2024 season at AA Harrisburg, posting a strong 3.02 ERA over 17 games. So talk to us a bit about your season there in Harrisburg, and what stands out most to you looking back now that you have the season in the rearview mirror?
Change. When I first walked into that clubhouse, the day I walked out, it's like I felt like I was two different people. I used to be a super linear, kind of really tall pitcher. Like, never really had any rotation in my delivery, versus like when I land and I have to rotate to throw the baseball. The pitching coordinator and the pitching coach there were phenomenal and just threw some ideas at me. It was like, hey, like, you have this really unique body that works in a really unique way. So why don't we work with it versus against it? So all of a sudden, next thing I know, like, I'm like my shoulders are facing a right-handed hitter. And it's like, what is this? And in turn, like, I used to be this really high, like, arm slot guy, and then it just started to go down a little bit. And the fastball started to play up more. And the sweeper started to get better. And then I was like, hey, you know, like, let's get a little bit more, like, turn in your torso. And mind you, like, before I just used to be so linear. Like, I used to be very just, I'm just going to pull my arms apart. And now I'm, like, completely across my body. And I was super apprehensive to it at first. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. Like, go for it. We worked on this in a bullpen right after 4th of July. And my next start after that, like 4 days later, we played Richmond and I took it out. 5 scoreless. And I was like, okay, like, that was really weird. Mind you, I had never tried this out of the windup either. Like, we had only worked on it out of the stretch. And I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. I figured out a windup with this whole new, like, foot placement thing in my pregame bullpen. And I looked at the pitching coach and I was like, if this goes bad, the first 3 hitters, I'm going back to what I do. And he was like, okay, go for it. I went like punchy, ground ball. And I was like, okay. Next start, I go out 6 scoreless. And I was like, okay. And so every bullpen, every start, we just started to kind of like refine something a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So it was a full year of growth and honestly just like experiments that kind of worked. So it was really cool to just like try new things. I had never tried new things like that and just like kind of just dove headfirst into it. So it was unique, definitely a unique experience for me.
So I was looking on Instagram the other day, and a memory on like a baseball Instagram account had posted something about, I guess, an on this day kind of thing, where it showed that Pedro Martinez, back when he was a Dodger, was traded to the Montreal Expos for Delino DeShields. And then I was looking up things about Harrisburg, and it turns out Delino DeShields is your manager this year. Tell us a little bit about what it was like playing for him.
I mean, dude, he was the best. Like, day when I walk in there, he's like, dude, you're a vet. You have experience. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I am going to look at you to be a leader. And he just kind of let me do my thing. And it was interesting because, you know, like, I think anytime you walk into a new clubhouse with a new staff, you try to earn their respect. I don't think it's so much about wanting people to like you as much as it is you want people to respect you. And it was like a week. After my first week there, he looked at me and he was like, kiddo, you done great. And I was like, hey, thanks, dude. And, you know, that relationship just evolved. Like, it would get to the point where I'd walk in every day and go sit in his office and talk for a couple of minutes. I'd played against his son a little bit, and, you know, I had some rocky moments there. And Delino was just always a crutch for me. He was always door was always open. Hey, come in and talk to me, whatever you need. I know this is a new experience. I've been here before. And I used him because, honestly, he made my life easy. He was comfortable. He was easy to talk to. Open arms. He was like a dad. It's kind of weird to say, but, you know, by the end of the year, like, he's coming up to me talking like strategy. You know, I remember we had like lost the game because we brought the infield in with the runner on third. Guy hits like a, you know, weak ground ball at the middle, and he's like, you know, kiddo, like, that's just what we got to do. And I was like, you ain't got to tell me, dude. You got like 12 years in the show. Like, yeah, I'm all in. So it's funny, like, at the last day of the year, because I had pitched on a Saturday, Sunday, I walked into his office and I was like, dude, I just got to say thank you for making baseball fun for me again. Like, that's Delino DeShields. Like, he just makes the game fun. He every day you show up, he wants it to be fun. He wants you to be a professional. He doesn't micromanage. It's the players' clubhouse, and he's just a vice for you. He's awesome.
So talking through, you mentioned the journey and reflecting on the past 2 years spanning AAA Charlotte, the Atlantic League, AA Harrisburg, as we mentioned, and the Arizona Fall League Championship. It's been quite that journey. Looking back, you talk about the growth and the evolved nature of you as a pitcher during this roller coaster period, but I guess talk about facing adversity and growing from that.
It's funny. I've had like some interesting conversations about that today. I think like what's meant for you kind of will be. You can't kind of change fate. It's been good. I think if you never face adversity, you never have a chance to grow. You really find out who you are and what you're made of in times of turbulence. So I've learned to embrace it. It's just kind of my story. It's kind of my path. It's kind of who I am. It's never been straight and steady, but I wouldn't want it any other way. It's forced me to get outside of my comfort zone a ton, to change, to develop, to grow as a person and as a baseball player. It's forced me to create new relationships with people that I would have never met otherwise. It's given me a unique perspective on life and on baseball, right? So, the opportunity, every opportunity you get to show up to a clubhouse every day and just have a locker is a blessing. Never mind, get to go out on the field and play. So I think that's what it's done for me more, just from a perspective standpoint than anything else. It's just it makes me appreciate every day showing up to the field, good, bad, or indifferent. And again, it makes me appreciate how well I did in the fall league. It's so easy to overlook that and be like, oh man, what's next? But it's do you know how hard it is to go and be a fall star and win a championship there and be considered the ace of a staff and have 20 strikeouts and 1 walk against the best hitters in the world? It would be really easy to just overlook that and look to the next thing. But it's take a step back, appreciate it, because there's a ton of people that would do anything to be in that position. So I think that's the thing that I appreciate more about the adversity than anything else.
I love that perspective. Honestly, a lot of people could benefit from that mentality. Kids, adults, honestly, everybody, just being able to appreciate what you've done, the spot you're in, but also working hard towards whatever is next and embracing it. That one change going from the White Sox organization to the Nationals organization, obviously with a little time in between.
Yep.
Have you noticed, you've spoken glowingly about the Nationals so far, but did you notice any big differences or maybe even just small differences between the two organizations?
Yeah, that's such a hard topic of conversation for me, just because I'm never going to speak bad about the White Sox because I spent over 5 years with them. And, a lot of those people there are family to me. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you ever want to see your family do poorly. And they, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be in the position I am in now. So I still have love for them. I still root for them, right? The only time I'm not going to root for them is if they're in the other dugout across from me. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest difference is that the Nationals allowed me to be myself, in the sense of they didn't tell me, hey, we want you to throw this. This is what's going to work for you. They were like, you know what works for you. Let's just make it better. So it was kind of we're going to take what you do well and help you do it great. And the White Sox were like, this is what we think you can do well, and we're going to tell you how to do it. So it was hard, right? And if you didn't find that immediate connection of what they told you to do, it was really hard to buy into it, right? Because it's I'm working on it, and it's still not coming. It's still not there. I'm getting rocked, and you still want me to throw this, but then you're telling me I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. Versus the Nationals were like, hey, this cutter's good, but if we can, add a little bit more horizontal or throw it in this location versus this one, it's going to play that much better. So it was really cool to have the experience, to have a team of people around me. Having an analyst at my disposal anytime was a new experience. I basically had 4 people watching every bullpen I threw versus 1 pitching coach. So I had 8 eyes versus 2. The attention to detail was a little bit greater with the Nationals versus the White Sox. So there was a lot of things that were different. And I think just overall communication on, hey, we, month by month or every 2 weeks, we were getting emails about hey, this is what the front office thinks you're doing well. This is what we want to see you improve on. And this is what we want you to stop doing. Right. So the transparency was there. It was very easy to understand what they wanted from you and where you had to get better. So I think that was the easiest thing for me. There was never any guesswork.
And there's something to be said about there are people that anonymously have said that the White Sox do not buy into the advanced statistics more than any other franchise, maybe slow to the game, while the Nationals on the other side of things really embrace it. So that might be something that we hear out there. But do you see that on your end? Do you feel like there's more of an embracement of these advanced statistics and more of the progressive mind that baseball has become?
Yes and no. That's really funny because the White Sox never had an analyst for every staff. Just an actual person that's an analyst. They show up for your bullpen, they run the TrackMan, they run the technology during the game, and that's it. They send you a report on all your numbers. If you have questions, you go to them and you don't go to the pitching coach. Mm. Where the White Sox just had a pitching coach, and it was if you have any questions, that's who you go to.
Gotcha.
But the White Sox were big, throw nasty shit, punch guys out. The Nationals were, I don't give a shit how it gets done, get outs.
Right.
The Nationals were you have to be good at 2 or 3 things. Not walking people, striking people out, or weak contact. If you're good at 2 of those 3 things, you're great. They don't care how it's done. If you don't strike people out, you better not walk people, and you better not give up hard contact. The White Sox were like, we don't care if you don't walk people and you don't give up hard contact, you got to strike people out. So it was kind of like you always had one goal in mind as a pitcher.
Right.
I got to strike guys out. I got to strike guys out. I got to strike guys out. And that's not everyone's game. You know, like some guys, like Mark Burley didn't punch out the world. He's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
It's a White Sox legend. Garrett Crochet punches out the world. Right. So, but I mean, you look at the Nationals and it's like, look at Trevor Williams, dude. The guy's throwing 87, like thrown to a 2 ERA in the show. Like, come on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that right there should tell you the pitching philosophies in each organization. Right. They care about punch outs. Punch outs are great, right? But it's not the end all be all. If you can get outs, you can get outs.
So we talked about the adversity, and obviously being released by the White Sox in 2023 might have been the biggest adversity so far in the game. And how did you navigate that difficult moment? And really, more importantly, what drove you to stay motivated and continue pushing forward? Because a lot of people might look at that challenge and setback and say, maybe the ride ends here.
Just believe in myself. I don't know. I know that's probably really cliche to say. I was talking to my girlfriend earlier today, and I was just kind of like, I know how hard I work, and I know that when I put my mind to something, nothing's going to stop me, and I'm going to accomplish it. Like it may take me a week, it may take me a month, it may take me 6, or it may take me a year or 5. I'm going to get it done eventually, right? So I think understanding that I am good enough, I do have crazy talent, and I do have a unique ability, but sometimes the change of scenery is a good thing. Sometimes getting into a different org around new people, around new ideas, new faces is a really good thing and can change a person's career, right? Like I like to look at a guy like Duke Ellis, Yankees guy. White Sox, dude, he was never really good with the White Sox. Guy, you know, goes here, there, and everywhere. And now all of a sudden, you know, dude, he's going to get like basically a full playoff share because he's with the Yankees. So it's funny, I was in the fall league and he sent me a Snapchat one day, like completely out of the blue. And was just like, it's a picture of him walking into the clubhouse right before the World Series. And he was like, isn't it crazy what a change of scenery can do?
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, dude, you have no idea. But he does, obviously, right? Like, it's just,
yeah.
So it's like, it's no knock on anybody else. It's just like sometimes that environment isn't great for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sometimes you need to be around different people, or you need to be in a different clubhouse, or it's interesting. Like, right, you see guys get traded all the time and go be superstars. Look at Michael Kopech. I mean, that's just, he's a friend of mine, so it's really easy to use that as an example. It's a unique experience. So just believe in yourself, never give up, you know, like keep pushing. And just, I have a really good support system around me, and my parents and my agent, my girlfriend, that always push me forward and never allow me to stop. So.
Well, you mentioned change of scenery. Before you ended up in the Nationals organization, you were in the Atlantic League with the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. I know the Atlantic League has some different rules, some of them seemingly hitter-friendly. Did you have to change any of your approach in the Atlantic League when you went there, or was it pretty much business as usual?
Dude, I don't even know if there was different rules, honestly. I was there for so long, and my outings were so structured, like, X team is coming to see you on this day. X team's coming to see you on that day. You have to pitch an inning here. You have to. So it was like I was going out there doing whatever I was told to do by my agent and other people. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely unique, you know, like it's like, what am I doing here kind of thing. But it's all part of the purpose. Like I always look back at that. And dude, like 4 guys I talk to on a very regular basis now are from that team. And one of them's like my best friend. And I think everything happens for a reason. So I look back at that, you see me smiling, but like there's probably 2 guys from that team that'll be in my wedding one day, and like guys that I'll go on golf trips with forever, just fantasy football leagues and things like that. So it's just like a really unique experience of like, what am I doing here? But I was at the perfect place at the perfect time. Yeah. So I don't know. It was a really unique experience. Like, honestly, I would never go back and change that, as wild as that sounds. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. Like you can see me wanting to laugh and just kind of like, it was definitely unique.
Yeah, the Atlantic League it still is a testing ground for all these new rules. I know the automatic balls and strike system was there. They tried the bigger bases there first. They have this foul bunt where a batter's allowed one foul bunt with 2 strikes before the strikeout.
Yeah, I didn't do any of that. I was never a part of any of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, they have the double hook designated hitter, the designated pinch runner. So they're trying things there, which is probably right. You don't want it to start in AAA or the major leagues before you test the things out, because there are some things thrown at the wall that are not good. But I guess a follow-up question is your thoughts on some of the rule changes that we saw take place with trying to speed up the game. That's ultimately the goal of the front office of MLB. They want to make the game flow and be less than 3 hours. We talk about the percentage of games that want to being less than 3 hours was the largest it's been in so long. But your thoughts on that and how the pitchers on I guess the fraternity of pitchers, how do you guys feel about being a little bit more rushed than I guess the predecessors that came before you?
I don't know. I think you can either use it to your advantage or let it be a disadvantage. Speaking on the pitch clock, I think the pitch clock's great. I don't think you need 30 seconds in between every time you throw the ball. Like, bro, get the ball and throw it. It's not that deep. Work fast. It's a baseball game. As far as ABS, I love the challenge system. Again, though, if you go back and look at the fall league, a lot of guys struggle with how small the strike zone is. And a lot of hitters have really good strike zone recognition. And they challenge a lot. And the challenges, as quick as they are, they add up. And as small as the strike zone is, there's a lot of walks. And as many walks as there are, then it's 2-0, and then there's a lot of hits. So I think as much as you're fixing the game with the pitch clock is as much as I think you're kind of taking that away with the challenges. Although I love it. I'm a huge proponent of that. I think the challenges are great. I think it's like it's gonna even out. I'll be honest with you. I mean, because you have to think about it. Like, I had an at bat in AAA where I had 4 straight pitches challenged. I threw a pitch, the hitter challenged. Umpire called it a strike, overturned to a ball. The next pitch I threw, catcher challenged it, ball overturned to a strike, and then the same thing happened the next 2 pitches. That at bat was like 4.5 minutes long, and it was 5 pitches for no reason.
Yeah, so you're right. It's probably going to even out at that point, because at this point we're trying to get the calls right, but at the same time you want to keep the pace of play to keep people engaged. So it's this delicate balance of where's the fit. And it's probably where we were. You know what I mean? You're going to wind up somewhere in the middle where we already were before you started implementing all these different changes.
Yeah, and I think it's unique, right? Like, I think all these changes are good for the game. I think the challenge system is good because it's like, okay, you want to complain about the call, all you have to do is this now, brother. Yeah. That's all you have to do. You don't like what the umpire's doing, and you can see, right? Like, don't complain about it. On my end too. Hey, you don't like the call, challenge it.
Right.
The hitter doesn't like the call, hey, dude, challenge it. Like, it's a good way for the human element and the human error to still have a place in the game, but it's a good way for you to fact check too, right? And honestly, I think it's awesome for fan engagement. Like, when people see if it's a 3-2 count and someone challenges a pitch and it goes up on the thing, everyone in the dugout's like, everyone turns. Never mind the fans. It's like, oh, we get to see, like, and it lets you know, like, some guys challenge a pitch that's not even close, and it's like just purely emotional. Like, I've seen guys get called up on strikes looking, and they're so convinced, and you're like, oh, this is going to be way outside, and it's completely in the zone. Like, not even half the ball. You're like, dude, what was that? Right? So it's funny. It's like, it gives you a good look at it. And then obviously you have the iPads in the dugout where you can go see where everything's at and things along those lines.
So going back to when the Nats initially offered you that minor league deal, go back to your initial reaction and then go back to the preparation, making yourself ready for this opportunity in your mindset as you began transitioning to your role in this organization and make yourself the pitcher that you're today.
That's funny. Like, I kind of knew I was going to be a national for like 2 weeks. So I had like quite a bit of time to prepare for it. It was just kind of like waiting for kind of like the behind the scenes stuff to go down with the front office and things along those lines. I don't know. Like, I was just kept being myself. I didn't change too much. I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm going to go in and see what they want to work on. Not too much, dude. I was just like, here I am, like, keep doing my thing every day. Wake up, go to the field, get my workout in, get my throwing in, whatever it may be. I didn't change too much, right? I was just excited. was excited to just be around new people, new faces, new environment, new ideas. I think that was more of it. I was antsy. I was anxious, like not in a bad way, just to learn something new and just to kind of have a fresh start. If that makes sense.
So being that you knew already, was it because you saw things rumbling? Did you hear from somebody first and they're just waiting to dot the I's and cross the T's type of thing? Or was it like rumored and then you kind of saw it drop?
Rumored, and I have a really good agent. That's what I'll say.
Gotcha. Okay.
Rumored, and I have a really good team of people around me. Obviously who are working behind the scenes, and like I had some phone calls with some people and kind of, like what's money going to look like? Would I rather a 1-year deal? Would I rather a 2-year deal? Like just a bunch of different things. Like there was a lot of talks. It's interesting. It was like being a free agent for the first time. So it was kind of an experience, but yeah. And honestly, we had some talks with some other teams, but it just kind of felt like Washington was the best fit at that point in time. It's a younger team. Obviously decent starting pitching depth, but could always use more. They have a good young core of players. They want to win in the next few years. It's not necessarily a win now. They don't spend too much money in free agency because they kind of got smoked with Rendon and Strasburg and some other guys. So obviously it bodes well for you as a younger guy to go in there and make an impact right away and earn your keep and that kind of thing. So, and then obviously like I said, the philosophy earlier of like, it's not always strikeouts. It's just get guys out how you get guys out. There's a lot of things that aligned for that to happen. They liked me. I liked them. It was kind of a mutual agreement of like, this is going to be good for both of us. And I think that everyone has kind of seen where that's gone for obviously the Nationals and myself. It's been a win-win for everyone involved. So I think it's been great. And they've treated me exponentially, way beyond my belief of how well they've treated me.
As a fan, it is an exciting franchise to look at as far as where they are right now. They get all those guys in the Soto deal with San Diego. You get a guy like Dylan Cruz in the drafts. And it just seems like the talent's starting to come up. James Wood, obviously. And now they're rumored to be involved in a lot. Some of the bigger free agents now, like they're ready to kind of have those two entities meet of the young talent and maybe spending a little money. I've heard the Nationals name in the Pete Alonso race and a few other guys. As an outsider, it's interesting to see where they're going to go next. The division is absolutely stacked with the Mets, Phillies, and Braves, and the Marlins always seem to have at least young pitchers come up always. If they can stay healthy, who knows? And then the National, like that could be a fun 5-team race in the next couple of years where, a different team's winning that division every year. Just like speak to some of the young talent you've been around as far as the national system.
Yeah, I think like obviously I played with Dylan a little bit this year, like just probably one of the more professional guys I've ever been around. I think that guy's going to be 10-year big leaguer. I don't think you'll ever look up and think he's a Bryce Harper, but I think you're going to look up and think that he's a really, really, really good baseball player. It's hard to compare him to somebody. Right. Like I want to say Kevin Kiermaier because the defense is so good, but I think he's going to hit a little bit better than that. Obviously you can look at Jacob Young, in my opinion, should have won a Gold Glove. Best defensive run saved in the league this year. Obviously swings it pretty well too. I think James Wood speaks for himself. I don't think any of us have to say anything. Obviously you have Robert Hassel, his news today. And then, I think Drew behind the dish is great. I think that's going to be the catcher of the future. Obviously he's 50-50 this year, a little bit of time in AAA, a little bit of time in the big leagues, but I think his work ethic is really, really good. What they're going to do at first base is interesting, and also what they're going to do at third base is interesting because Brady House is going to be a really good baseball player too.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like I think a lot of people forget about Brady and how much talent there is there and how easy he plays the game. So I know they're linked to a few third basemen and things along those lines, but I do think that in some capacity you'll see Brady in Washington next year. Their middle infield, I think the middle infield is going to be really good. I think you look at Nasim Nunez and you look at CJ and you're just okay, that's really exciting as well. Then obviously there's some good young starting pitchers and DJ and Mitch, and obviously the list goes on, but I don't know. I've heard the Christian, what's his name? Christian Santana, maybe.
Carlos Santana,
Christian
Walker, Carlos Santana. I mean, yeah, for
I've
first,
heard
I
those
can see
two.
either of
I've
those
heard
guys.
a little bit of Bregman. I've definitely heard the Pete Alonso thing, and so it's interesting. I think I don't know where they're going to spend it, but I think they do, and I think the organization's in a really good position to win, and those guys are hungry. Young guys, obviously they want to get paid. Obviously they want to play well. Obviously they're going to stay healthy, knock on wood, but all those guys work really hard. They're in the weight room. They're gym rats. They get after it. So
this might be a question, and you can be completely honest. If you're uncomfortable answering this question because you're a part of the organization, feel free. You've been super open and honest with us, so I don't want to put you in a bad spot. But just mentioning CJ Abrams, at the end of the season, we were kind of shocked to see the Nationals' reaction to I guess him breaking curfew. Maybe it was more than a one-time thing, and they kind of sat him down for the rest of the season. Player-wise, did players have a reaction to that? Like, was there a shock there? We, as two talking heads, we were talking about how, like, maybe that might not be a great look as far as players wanting to come there, or there's probably a lot that we just don't know, not being in the clubhouse. Was there a reaction among players in the organization?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's probably what you think, right? Like everyone just kind of wants to know the story, but obviously there's always more to the story than what the media tells. And obviously, like, the media gets the six-hand story of it. I mean, I do know what happened because I spent some time with CJ in West Palm at the end of the year. So yeah, I mean, CJ, here's what I'm going to say. CJ is a really good player and he works really, really hard. And he's an all-star. Right. CJ is going to be the franchise player there for a really long time. And that I wouldn't overthink too much into kind of what they did. And that if anything, I think people should look at that like, okay, the organization expects to win and they expect their players to do the right thing. And that if you were a starting pitcher that day, if you were going to be on the mound and your career was on the line and your numbers were on the line, would you want somebody to go out there that was up till X doing whatever, not even that situation? Go and play shortstop for you, or go and play center field, or go and catch for you.
Yeah.
Is that going to give you the best chance to win when that ball's hitting the 6 hole and there's a runner on third and your ERA is going to be a 3.5 or a 3.8? And the difference between a 3.5 and a 3.8 is $2.5 million in arbitration. And those two runs that are on first and second, when that ball gets up the middle, like, what do you want? So I think that, obviously everyone makes mistakes. I've made mistakes in my career, and I think everyone has. But I also think it shows that the organization cares about winning and that they want their players to do the right thing and set examples, and that being an all-star type of talent around a bunch of young guys set the example. So I respect it on all ends. That's what I'll say. So I think that a lot of people have overreacted to the decision that was made. And I think that maybe you should open every door in the room and look at every perspective of it before you make judgment if that wasn't right. Which I'm not saying it was, right? Like, again, I'm just saying, like, from an outside looking in perspective, understand that that's a move that the organization did to show that they care about winning.
Yeah. I mean, that perspective you just gave us that's exactly why I wanted to ask the question, because, you read it as a headline and then you actually hear a player's perspective, someone who's out there, it can completely change how you see it. Completely different type of question now. Growing up and playing the game and watching the game, did you have a favorite player or someone that you kind of modeled your own game after watching?
I was a big, like, Rick Ankiel guy.
Oh.
I grew up in my area. I've always known him. So just kind of like Michael Brantley, or Mickey Brantley, his dad was my hitting coach growing up. So like watching Michael and Rick, if I didn't have a personal tie to somebody like Ken Griffey, I just liked that he had fun playing the game. Obviously was a baller, that kind of thing. From a pitching perspective, dude, I don't know. Like, I wasn't really interested in pitching until I was like a sophomore in high school. So I never really like looked at a pitcher like, oh wow, yeah, I want to be him. I always thought like Josh Beckett was sick.
Yeah.
I don't know if that does anything for anyone, but like that old Marlins team, like with Dontrell, Beckett, like the old like 02-01 Marlins. Like, I thought that was so sick.
Yeah, they broke my heart in 03. Beckett with that shutout at Yankee Stadium, just quietly going down and winning Game 6, and the Marlins celebrate on Yankee Stadium. I mean, it's a formidable. You talk about adversity as a fan. That was something I was like, the Yankees don't always win.
You worked your way through it.
So we talked about pitching and advanced statistics, but recently there's been considerable attention on pitching labs with some organizations, specifically the Milwaukee Brewers, receiving praise for their innovative approaches. And have you had any personal experience in a pitching lab? And if so, could you provide us with an inside look about how these facilities operate and how they contribute to your development?
Here's what I want you to know. Look at what college baseball has turned into. All your good schools have pitching labs.
Mm-hmm.
You get anything and everything you want whenever you want it, however you want it. You walk into a room, there's a mound, and there's probably 30 cameras around you, high-speed cameras. You can throw in your underwear. You can throw in normal clothes. It depends if it's marker or markerless. It'll give you dude, it'll tell you how long your toenails are.
Wow.
Honestly. It is anything and everything you want to know on a graph. I have a document on my phone that's 48 pages long of just little numbers and lines. And I'm just okay, that's great. Tell me what it means. Right. But I think it's really good for when you look at kinetic sequencing, right? Okay, this person has thrown this hard in the past, whereas what's wrong? Because visually you're okay, it looks good. But you realize that his arm's moving slower than it was because his hips aren't rotating as fast as they were before, because he's not creating as much force as he was prior, right? So you can get very nitty gritty details. Obviously, again, force, they have force plate mounts. So you can see when I lift my leg and I start to go forward, I'm weightless for a split second. And then once I drop into my leg, I put 4 times the amount of body force or body weight and force into the ground. So it's figuring out okay, I throw hardest when I put force in 2 seconds after I lift my leg, or a second and a half, little actual nitty gritty detail. Figuring out how to time your arm up, right? Just anything and everything. You're just getting into the most nitty gritty, and you have TVs behind you and you're looking at slow-mo video with markers, and you can just see exactly how your body's moving. And it's important because I think it's huge for health, overall health of pitchers. When you're throwing 150 to 180 innings a year, it's good to see where you're at in the beginning of the year and where you're at the end of the year. You want to know where your deficiencies are. Okay, hey, your arm slowed down by 10%. Your hip rotation slowed down by X amount. You're not getting, you're getting 6 degrees lower into your leg now than you were in the beginning of the year, right? So it allows you to kind of compare and contrast from the beginning of the year, the middle of the year to the end of the year, whenever you want to throw a lap. It's just literally imagine being a lab rat. Yeah. Just running on a wheel with a bunch of people watching. It's just cameras and computers, and you have no idea what it means, but everyone else around you does.
You gave me literally a lab rat. It's the perfect segue because you mentioned how it helps kind of in seeing your own health in the game through a whole season. A big story, not just this season, but I feel in April and May, it really kind of took on a new life of its own. There's a whole story about just major elbow injuries seem to be happening at such more frequency in the game over the last several years. Everyone has their theories. A lot of people talk about the obsession with velocity and spin causing it. Other people point to the rules against sticky stuff being more strict. As a pitcher with a ton of experience, what's your perspective on that issue?
I'll say this. I've never used sticky stuff and I've never had elbow problems. So I don't think it's that. Although I can understand where it does come from, because you have to grip the ball so tight that it puts a ton of stress on your forearm, and you tense up and you throw harder than you have to before you have to, and things along those lines. I roll my eyes at that. But my opinion on it is my parents are physical therapists, so I feel like I have a pretty good idea. I don't think guys are strong enough in the right areas to throw as hard as they do. That's what I got for you. When you throw 100 miles an hour and your lats are weak, your forearms are weak, your biceps weak, your triceps are weak, your decelerator muscles are weak. Yeah, dude, it's definitely not going to go well for you, right? If I told you right now to walk into the gym and go deadlift 800 pounds like the world's strongest man, that's not going to go well for you. Mm-hmm. Your back's going to hurt. You're going to wake up in the hospital the next day. A lot of those things, and on top of that, you're throwing a slider as hard as you can over and over and over again in February, because guys try to come into camp ready. You're trying to earn that spot right away. So there's no slow build up process. You're not working your way into it. You go from throwing in an indoor building or on a field with no people around you to throwing against, I don't know, Aaron Judge on the third day of batting practice or the third day of spring training and live batting practice. Like, yeah, because that intensity is like the exact same as what you just did, right? So you go from throwing to a catcher with nobody around to facing Aaron Judge in 3 days. The intensity, the level of intensity in that is like, it's not healthy.
Right.
And mind you, like, guys are competing for those spots.
Right.
Like, so you're out there and you're like, this matters. I know I've been here for 2 days, but this matters. Like, if Aaron Judge takes me deep or hits a ball 110 off me up the middle, like, people are thinking about that. Even though it's day 2. I promise you they are. I just think that's the thing. It's like a lot of guys think they're ready, but they're not ready. It's too much too soon. Guys throw too hard. They're not strong enough. Like, I think every guy's situation is different, but I don't think it's a sticky stuff situation.
We appreciate the perspective on it because that's obviously everyone throws it around and you want to talk about organizations that have more injuries than not. And you start pointing fingers about what they're doing that someone isn't doing. And yeah, it's definitely a conversation that continues and you don't want to see the best pitchers in the world go down with injuries. So everyone wants to prevent it. Even if they're playing for the team you don't root for as a fan, you don't want to have the field like we saw with the Dodgers. I mean, they won the World Series, but all the injuries we saw on the Dodgers, like we missed a lot of good pitchers having moments this year on the mound.
Glasnow, Stone, Sheehan. Yeah, I mean, some of the Stone and Sheehan are my guys. So
as you look ahead to 2025, what are your biggest goals for this upcoming season? Whether it's refining specific pitches, enhancing your mental approach, what key aspects of your game are you focusing to take the next steps towards the ultimate goal, reaching the show and taking the mound at Nationals Park?
I think that just stay the course, right? I think I had so much growth this year, not to change too much, to continue to kind of build on what I have built, if that makes sense. I feel like I have a ton of momentum right now. So obviously continue to work on my cutter, continue to throw that as much as I can, where I can, or wherever I want, rather. Continue to work on the splitter, continue to get really good with that, execution-wise, command-wise, things along those lines. And obviously, I think stay healthy. Stay healthy, have fun, take advantage of it. Like, I used to have so many goals every year going into it, but just have fun. Like, dude, the chips are going to fall where they are, right? Like, I can control what I can control. If I go out there and prepare myself well every 5th day, I'm going to throw the ball well, right? I have confidence in that, but if I'm worried about what everyone else around me is doing, what's going on ahead of me or behind me, like, and my focus isn't where my feet are, I'm not going to throw the ball well. If I just focus on where I'm at, what I'm doing, what I need to do to be successful, I'm going to be successful. And that's what I learned this year. Be present, have fun.
So Chase, you've given us a ton of your time and we are super grateful for it. I got to say, we're 40 episodes in here. We've been doing this really just since March, since the beginning of the season. We've been lucky enough to have a lot of interesting conversations with different people. Personally, this is maybe my favorite, just the perspective and the attitude you bring here. So thank you for that. I'm going to get you out of here on a non-baseball question. So one thing we didn't mention about you yet is you're a Tulane guy. You got to be excited with the football team. Right now ranked 20th in the nation, 9-2. I know it's getting close to the end here, but is there any thought that they can sneak into that bracket with the new playoff system this year?
I don't know. Is Boise State's running back not going to run for 280 yards and 7 touchdowns every game? Because if he doesn't one game, then yeah, Tulane's getting in. But if he does, then no, they're not. Here's what I'll say. First year with a new coach, obviously Coach Summerall. They lost Fritz. I mean, I think Willie was massive for that program, completely turned it around. Obviously, he's at Houston now. But what Summerall's done there, and I didn't expect it. I don't think anybody expected it. But to come in, a freshman quarterback, and do what they're doing right now, just running all over people, I think it's really exciting. So whether they make it in or they don't, they're going to be in a New Year's Six Bowl. And I think it's great for the university. I think it's great for the baseball team, obviously the football program, the athletic department, and the school itself. So I'm amped for them, dude. Like, it's so much fun to turn on the TV every Saturday and have something to root for. So I love it. I think it's great. It gives me bragging rights in the locker room.
For sure.
That's awesome, Chase. And again, like I'm going to echo what Devin said. Thank you so much for giving us your time on a Tuesday night here, having conversations about baseball and giving us a chance, really, because you're the first major league player that we have on our screens here having conversations. So we don't take that lightly. And again, taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on here and have a conversation, it does not go unnoticed. Thanks so much.
Yeah, dude. Anytime, guys. I always enjoy, like I said, talking ball, chopping it up, whatever. You know, I'm a guy. I'm a player. I'm a normal human being. I play golf. You know, I do whatever. So I appreciate you guys giving me the platform, and just look forward to having a cool relationship moving forward. So
awesome. So make sure you guys check out Chase's Instagram over there. That's how we got in contact with him. It's at Solesky, right? That's exactly what it is. So you guys can check him out over there. Give him a follow. He has a verified check over there, so you know it's him. And like his posts and follow the journey, because that's how we started here. And you have fans for life, dude. We're gonna be following your journey, and hopefully we see
Absolutely.
you. Once you get called up to the Nationals, because it's not an if, it's a when. We'll go to Yankee Stadium. We'll wave to you from the seats. So
let me know, boys. I'll give you guys some tickets.
I appreciate it, man. But we'll be back in a little bit with our final wrap up. Thank Chase Solesky so much for joining us and having a conversation here. What an hour he gave us of really great, insightful information. And like I said before, he has some fans for life. I'm going to be following his journey, and I hope to see him in a Nationals uniform pretty soon into April. And you and I didn't really mention that because we don't want to put him in a spot to predict that. But based on the performance in the AFL and based on what we're seeing from him and what the Nationals' needs are, it's hard to imagine he won't at least get the chance to do that coming out of spring.
I mean, that would be awesome to see. I'm the same as you. It's hard not to root for a person like that. Just the attitude, like he's motivating me over here to be a better person, just with his perspective on things and just life in general, but also, trying to head towards your goals. So just an amazing, 55 minutes that we spent with him. Great perspective, answered every single question. And like you said, I'll be following the journey. I hope the people that are listening as well, if they weren't familiar with Chase, they follow him as well. Because I think he's had a super interesting journey so far, and who knows what's ahead.
Yeah, and like you said, I think the most interesting thing that we always talk about and we don't really consider a lot, and we will be discussing it throughout the winter here, is about fit and about atmosphere, and about finding what fits. And sometimes, and it's not even just baseball, it's all across life about you may be in an environment that's not conducive to bringing out your best self. And I think that's something that can motivate everybody, that it may not just work out right now, but that if you push forward and with positive thinking and manifesting, he has the right answer for that. And like it is, like you said, not even exaggerating. It has me motivated to be like, you know what? Adversity might be a good thing to push through.
Yeah, I think everyone could probably see themselves a little bit in Chase in some way, shape, or form. And you talked about fit and change of scenery. Like I look at my own career, my day job as a teacher. Before the current school I'm in, I was in a school for 6 years that was probably not the right place for me. And I was at the point of either probably leaving the profession or getting something else. And luckily I landed where I landed. And so that's what I'm saying. Like everyone, no matter what they're doing in life, can probably see a little bit of that. And I really just appreciated the whole perspective.
So again, if you guys want to support us, please follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TableSetterspod for the exclusive updates, behind the scenes content, some interactive fan polls, and for future episodes. If you're just popping in here because you're a Nationals fan, we are covering all the leagues. So pop back and check out episode 40, where we did discuss a lot of fun things with the Hall of Fame class. We talked about some of the year-end awards with Paul Skeens and Luis Heel, and we got the Manager of the Year awards to talk about. And we do our first ever experimental blind rankings, where we discuss the combination of ballparks and the free agents, and also some of the tag teams that you put together. Blind rankings are all the rage. And right now, we might be experimenting the Atlantic League for baseball. We have all of November and December, the offseason, where we have this down period before the winter meetings to experiment with our content. And I think the blind rankings was a really fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're listening to this, like Steve said, and you didn't listen to 40, go back to 40, see if we sounded like idiots. I mean, blind rankings are not easy. We did not make it easy for ourselves either. Like I'm seeing these late night shows and these sports shows usually do like blind rankings like 1 to 5. We did 1 to 13 and 1 to 11. I quizzed Steve on what if there were free agent tag teams where you put two free agents together and you had to take them as a pairing. And I gave him 11 different pairings. He had to rank them. So it was a fun time, and I think everyone will enjoy it.
So also we want to thank the last person left us a review on our page, 5 stars on Apple. That does help a lot. The algorithm helps. We always don't take that for granted. So if you guys are out there and listening and you leave a review for us, it goes a really long way for other people to find our content. Because as Devin mentioned, we're only 40 episodes in, and we hope to continue this for a long time, but we need people to find it first. And the reviews really help the algorithm.
No doubt about it. Yeah, that was, I set that one too, the most recent one on Apple, just something along the lines of like exactly what I was looking for. Well, that's what we're trying to do, guys. We're trying to give you just passionate baseball, not just news, a little bit of opinion, perspective, and hopefully not always just us talking, like having a Chase here and picking his brain, or having a writer or a radio or a TV person or another podcaster that follows just a single team. That's what we've been doing, and we want to continue to do that in the future. So thank you, guys.
So as the long winter continues here in baseball land, we'll be having an episode before Thanksgiving. But if you're listening to this one and you're not going to listen to the next one, have a happy Thanksgiving. We hope you do join us for the next one. The off season is going to start to heat up after Thanksgiving. So everyone buckle up and await really the winter meetings. And then we're going to off to the races. I think we're going to get some big news, but we will cover that in episode 42 and beyond. And we'll talk to you after a while.
In a year that has been so improbable, the